Uh, Welcome to third episode of Let's Grow Season 2. Got two great coaches. One of the top mid-major coaches in college basketball has done a remarkable job at Sam Houston. Head coach Jason Hooten. And then we got associate head coach of North Dakota State, an up and comer who will be a head coach here in the next year or two. Has done a remarkable job as the associate head coach at North Dakota State. Kyan Brown, Fort Smith, Arkansas native. Um, Tonight we'll go ahead. We'll get going with Coach Hooten, and I'll go ahead and just kind of share because I've seen Coach Hooten. I was one of those players as a at a young age when I played college ball that I always remember the assistant coaches for whatever reason. At the time, Coach Hooten was an assistant at Sam Houston when I played at McNeese, and he was always very nice and very mannerable. Um, um, and then he took the position as head coach at Sam Houston, where he has done a great job. He's went to five postseasons. He's had five 20-win seasons during his course of time. I want to say in 11 seasons as the head coach at Sam Houston, and is getting ready to lead Sam Houston in from transition of the Southland Conference to the WAC conference. And I'm sure they'll continue to be at a high level um, in the WAC, just as they were in the Southland. So without further ado, Coach Jason Hooten.
Man, I appreciate it. Probably the reason that you remember me the most, though, is because I was trying all I could to keep you from whipping Bob Marlin's butt during that game from him talking to you all the time. So that's probably what you remember the most is me trying to keep you from getting over there and getting your hands on him. So I wouldn't want to do that at all, man.
You remember things like that, Coach?
Oh, I remember. But one thing I do always remember was how tough and hard-nosed you were and how hard you played. And, it was always you were always a guy that we knew when we were going into that game, we were going to have to compete, man, because you always brought it. You got after it all the time. So anyway, well, I appreciate you having me on. It's obviously always an honor to be able and a privilege to be able to go on and speak to coaches. And really, Ryan and I briefly talked about tonight and kind of what I need to talk about. And I hope that this is good, but I'm probably the worst guy that you have to talk when you have to talk about yourself. I'm not really a self-promoting type guy, and don't do a real good job of talking about myself or my journey or sharing that. So I'm gonna try to do as good as I can tonight. I think the best thing, or what I would like to do at the end, and I know Ryan talked about that after Coach Brown goes, is really just question and answer. When I'm on these things and I'm listening to other people, I think having some time at the end to ask questions is really a good thing, because you can learn a lot from that, I think, and I always do from other people as well. So I guess, Ryan, just you want me to just kind of start with where I got going and
the beginning of your journey, start of
yeah. So my journey really started. I'm from a place in Central Texas called Killeen, Texas, and there is located the largest Army base in the world. And growing up, I was always a baseball player. Started playing basketball, maybe in boys' club, like most of you guys did. Most of you ladies probably started out that way as well. And always thought I was going to be a baseball player. That was just going to be a done deal. Family had an uncle that was a great pitcher at Rice. Had a chance to be a major league pitcher. Back then, you did two things when you finished college. You either went to the Army or you went home and got married. And so he had an opportunity to pitch Major League Baseball. And like most guys, he probably made a decision and went back home and got married. And so I always thought I was going to be a baseball player, and got to high school, started playing basketball. And I think the biggest thing that drew me to basketball was the fact that it was always something that people told me I couldn't do. And really and truly, that's probably why I'm where I'm at today. My father was a construction worker got up at 5 a.m., came home every night at 5 p.m., and he worked for the same man for like 40 something years. And, I didn't have any leg up. I didn't have any skins in the game. There was nothing to that. Just really just worked hard and just was always in the right place at the right time. But played high school basketball as well as baseball, and ended up getting a scholarship to play for a really, really good coach at McLennan Community College, a guy named Ken DeWeese. And that's probably where it really all got started. He was a great coach, and I learned so much from him as a player. And I was very blessed and fortunate to play in junior college back when junior college was junior college. That was back in the days where, San Jacinto, probably their 10th man on their bench, got a high major scholarship. I think Coach Dernander told me one year when Rick Barnes was at Providence that he came in after Hutch and signed his 9th guy to a full scholarship at Providence. So, junior college back then was amazing. And I was blessed to play on 2 great teams at McLennan. Got to play against some great guys, Larry Johnson, Odessa had great teams back then. And then after that, I had a scholarship, offer to Incarnate Word. And it's really a crazy story. And I'll go through it just real quickly, but I was going to be the first person in that conference, and I can't remember the name of that conference then, with Incarnate Word in St. Edwards and St. Mary's Heartland Conference. Back then in the Heartland Conference, they didn't give a full scholarship. I think you only got like tuition and fees and maybe room and board, or I can't remember. They left off something, but I was the first person ever in that conference to get a full scholarship. And I stayed there for 3 days. And I went back home. I think my parents were about ready to kill me, leaving somewhere where I had a full scholarship. But I don't know. We always talk about our guys leaving and, our guys transferring, and, which I'm sure we'll have that topic somewhere tonight. But just something wasn't quite right, and I just didn't feel right. And so anyway, I went back home and got a bunch of phone calls and ended up going to Tarleton State. I think I got there on a Monday, and school had started the week before. And just looking back in my career, it was probably the best move, that I ever made in my life for a lot of reasons. First of all, that was where I ended up getting my college career coaching started. And then also that's where I met my wife. So it was a great move for me to end up going to Tarleton. And I played there for 2 years. And then I ended up coaching there my first 11 years. And, we talk about journey. I think the biggest thing that and I know there's a lot of guys on here who are well-to-do assistant coaches and on your way up the ladder. And then the guys on here that are trying just to get into the business. And we may even have some head coaches on here as well. But, one thing I will always remember is, when I left and finished at Tarleton, that summer I went and worked camps, which I think is a great way for young guys to get into the business. And I went and worked TABC camp, which is the big high school camp here in the state of Texas. And at the time, I really didn't have anything going on. And I was going to probably go and be a high school coach or, a JV coach and a varsity assistant. And the last week of camp, I got a phone call from my mentor, Lon Reisman, who was the head coach at Tarleton at the time and the guy I played for. And his assistant had just left, literally. And so he called and said, "Hey, I got this job open, and I want you to come up here tomorrow morning." It was a Sunday, I believe, when I got home from that camp. So Monday morning, I threw a suit on and I drove to Stephenville, which is about a 2-hour drive from Killeen, and sat down with him. And at the time, we were NAIA non-scholarship, and he was in the process of trying to get the athletic director job, as well as we were trying to make a transition from NAIA non-scholarship to Division II. And so talked to him that day. He offered me the job, and I'll never forget. I went home and packed a few things up, and it was probably about the first week in August, and we were going to start school maybe the next week, probably like 14th of August or something. And you talk about your journey and how things get started. So I went and packed a few things up, and I drove back up there. And I never forget walking in. You guys got to remember now, I'm getting up there in age. We had no cell phones. There was no cell phone. And so when I got there that first day to start, again, we had no scholarships, and he wanted to get about 3 more players or 2 more players in before school started. And he tossed me Jerry Mullins and Rick Ball. He tossed me a whole notebook full of those scouting reports from Rick Ball and Jerry Mullins. And he gave me the code that you had to press into the school phone. Because back then there were no cell phones, and you had to have a school phone or a school ID, press this code in. And even when you're on the road, if you went to a payphone, you guys don't remember this, but we used to use codes. You had a calling card that you used to get on. So that's how I got started, man. I got in there in his office and I just started calling kids. You know, I mean, Rick Ball would have the kid's name on there, his ability. He'd have a phone number on there, and boom, man, I just started calling guys. And, you know, we had to get people in on T-Peg, Pell Grant, Texas grants, you name it. I mean, because we had no scholarships whatsoever. And man, I feel bad looking back on those days, but I can't remember how many guys or recall how many guys actually took out student loans. You know, and I look back at those days and, you know, just feel bad about guys having to take student loans out to play and to go to school. But we got going, and man, I made a bunch of phone calls, and I think we ended up signing 2 guys before school started, and just got them to come on, you know, on faith and based on all the things that we just had to offer other than a scholarship. And you know, the first couple of years we went, you know, kind of that first year we competed in NAIA, had a really good team, went to the national tournament. And then we made that transition, and the transition was very difficult, obviously not having scholarships, and then, you know, just starting to build your way up. And, you know, I'll never forget that first year we had 1 scholarship, and in Division II, for you guys that are familiar with Division II, you can split your scholarships up. So, you know, we had 1 scholarship, man. We tried to get like 3 or 4 guys off of 1 scholarship. And, you know, at the time we were playing the Lone Star Conference, which is, you know, one of the best Division II conferences in the country. And, you know, everybody in there had 10 full rides. And so I just look back on those times and that journey, or that start of the journey. And really and truly, I think that was, you know, what really got me going, and really the passion to recruit. And because I say it all the time, and I tell my assistants this all the time, but the bottom line is, if you want to be a head coach, and you got to recruit, because that's what it's all about. Is it's about getting players. We all know that. And you know, I was at Tarleton for 11 years. You know, I had some opportunities to take some Division I assistant jobs, you know, throughout that process. And you know, I think I'm a really loyal guy, and the thing that kept me there was, more than anything, is when I left there, I wanted it to be the best Division II in the country. And my last 2 years there, we were ranked number 1 in the country. And you know, I think the next thing is just the networking, you know, all those years of being on the road and really getting to know people, you know, being blessed to meet a lot of coaches and get to know coaches, which I think is the number 1 thing you guys got to do is get into the networking. Again, I'm not a big self promoter type guy, but I think there's nothing wrong with getting to know people. And, you know, met a guy named Bob Marlin a couple of times on the road. And so anyway, in 2000, he called and offered me an assistant job. And at the time, my wife and I had just gotten married. We had just built our first house, and she had just taken her first volleyball job. And, you know, he called in like September, and she had already started 2-a-days. And it just kind of wasn't the time. I didn't really feel like it was right, or it was the time to do it. And so we turned that down in 2000. And I'll never forget, you know, that was the year that Sam Houston beat Bobby Knight at Tech, beat Baylor at Baylor, beat Houston at Houston. I think they beat Nebraska that year. I mean, it was crazy. I kept looking back and telling my wife, I was like, man, we should have took that job this year. But it wasn't the right time. And so we just kind of kept plugging along. And in 2003 or 2004, he called again, and called in the spring this time. And, you know, we took the job. And, you know, obviously it was the best decision of my life. And, one thing about Tarleton when I left there was probably the hardest thing I ever had to do. I was there 11 years, met my wife there. Coach Reisman's like a second dad to me and a mentor. But I remember that year we lost. We had a great team. We made it. We were a game away from the Elite Eight, and we lost a bunch of guys. And I just remember, taking that job and telling myself, man, before I leave this place, I'm going to make sure that this thing is in good hands and that it's loaded up. And so we signed 8 guys that year before I left there. And before I ever left out of there, I made sure every one of those guys was eligible. I even told Bob Marlin, look, I'm not leaving here until these guys are eligible and they're ready to go, and that they're here on campus and they're signed, sealed, and delivered. So I started at Sam July 1st of 2004, and of course spent 6 years as an assistant for him. And the one thing I'll tell you guys tonight is I'll never forget when he hired me. This was what he said to me, and this doesn't always work out, man. Again, I'm a super blessed guy. I've always been at the right place at the right time. But he told me this when he hired me. He said, come here, get me players just like you got him players. And when it's all said and done, I'll get another job and you'll have an opportunity to get this job. And man, it just happened that way. We had some great teams here. We had some really good players. He obviously was a tremendous head coach. And, in 2010, he had a lot of job offers. We went to the NCAA tournament that year. And, the other thing I think I really did a good job of or tried to do was just, you guys, obviously you got to get to know everybody. And I think I did a pretty good job of really getting to know the athletic director and building a relationship with him and getting comfortable with him and him comfortable with me. And then also, boosters and the people in town. I mean, I think that's all obviously very important because, when the head coach leaves, if they've won and he's done a good job there, then more than likely those people are going to listen to him. And I think that the people listened to Bob Marlin and, gave me an opportunity to be the head coach. And, 11 years in now, and we've obviously been very blessed here and had some pretty good teams. And the only other thing I left off of my journey was my year after playing at Tarleton. And when I got ready to do my student teaching, I was very, very, very lucky. My high school basketball coach, a guy named Marco Cena, was the coach at Weatherford Junior College. And I got really lucky. Weatherford's about 40 minutes from Stephenville. And I worked it out to where I got my student teaching at Weatherford High School. And then I moved over to Weatherford and I lived in the dorm. So they put me up in the dorm, ate in the cafeteria free, lived in the dorm free. I went over to the high school and did my student teaching every morning from 8 to 4. And then at 3:30 or 4 o'clock, I came over and I helped him every day. And so I got to do that for a whole year. And that junior college experience was, not only playing junior college, but I obviously got a year of junior college experience coaching. And I thought that was a tremendous thing. The greatest thing for that was I also got to meet a lot of coaches because we had great players and all those coaches came in to recruit our players. Back then, again, we didn't have cell phones. We just had the lobby phone. And so, at night, all the college coaches would call the lobby phone and I would just be the person that would answer the lobby phone. And, they'd call for a certain guy, I'd run up to his room, knock on his door, get him down there and get him on the phone for those coaches. So, I got to meet a lot of coaches that way and my networking really started. It kind of started then. So, I don't know really much more what to talk about, Ryan, just the fact of, just a journey. And, that first job I took at Tarleton, and I know all you guys have a different story and a different journey, but I think one thing that I've noticed with young guys to this day is, understanding about paying your dues and understanding about what it takes to get your foot in the door. When I got that job at Tarleton, there was an athletic director there in place and he was retiring. So Coach Reisman was trying to get the athletic director job. And we knew if he got it, it was going to be a great situation for us because at that time, there were no basketball coaches in the country that were also ADs, right? Usually that's a football coach. But the athletic director at the time, when he brought me in and offered me the job, man, I took that job at Tarleton in 1993 for $18,000 a year. I was the assistant basketball coach. And for 2 years, I was the head tennis coach for 2 years. So I did tennis for 2 years. I was the assistant basketball coach, and I also taught 4 classes. And I taught classes there for 11 years, and it wasn't a lot of fun. I mean, there's probably some guys on this call tonight that are teaching classes right now, and if you are, God bless you, because it's very difficult to be a college coach and also have to teach classes, because of the recruiting and the day-to-day, going and coming. But I look back at that, man, and man, I had a Cadillac, I had a 1-bedroom apartment, and that was it. I mean, I didn't have a cell phone bill, I didn't have anything, man, and I wasn't making any money. So my paycheck was basically enough to feed me, enough to pay that car payment and that apartment payment, and that was it. And I mean, that's how I got my journey started. So when I got this job in 2010 and they called me in there and told me how much money I was going to make, uh, man, I was blessed. First of all, I never thought, I always said I wanted to be a coach, and everybody always said, "Why you want to be a coach? You can't make any money." Uh, and my mom always said, "Man, don't worry about what people think or how much money you're going to make. You got to do what you love." And so, I appreciated that advice, and drawing me into this profession. As you guys all know, man, this is a difficult profession, and getting your foot in the door is the hardest thing to do. I know there's a lot of guys on here right now that are trying to do that, but you got to understand it don't matter what job it is. If somebody offers you an opportunity to be a college coach and that's something that you want to do, it doesn't matter if you got to teach tennis or coach tennis or teach 4 classes or make $18,000 or less than that. My graduate assistant makes $18,000 right now, and that's what 28 years ago. So I just think it's all about the part of the journey, and just how you're going to go about it and how you're going to get your foot in the door. And um, I've obviously learned a lot of things on the way, but I think the biggest thing I've learned is just, yeah, you got to be in the right place at the right time, but you got to work your butt off, and you got to be a grinder in order to get that opportunity. And then when you do, you got to make the most of it. So, Ryan, I don't know what much else you want me to talk about as far as my journey.
Hey, you're good. You're good. Yeah, that was good stuff for us. So yeah, we'll get back. We'll circle back to wagons a little bit and go into Q&A session here in a second. We'll go ahead and let Coach Brown speak. But we appreciate your words, Coach Hooten. I I guess hearing that you went through it, like you started out junior college and you created a path going to junior college route as an assistant, as a coach, and then going to the Division II route and going to the Division I route. And that means you just been through it. You've seen it every level of college basketball. So, Coach, we appreciate your words. Our next speaker is a gentleman that I've gotten to know probably going back to my Fort Smith days. Is that probably correct?
Oh, yeah, baby.
Yeah. We're actually in the Fort Smith family. He's a native of Fort Smith, but
I'm not native, coach. I'm not. That's my first job, but I'm not native of there now.
That's not your native home.
Oh man, Ketchikan, Alaska, born and raised.
Big time. I just always assume, man. I
Always
think of you as being a Fort Smith guy. So I thought that was probably where you were from. But I do know you've had a lot of success wherever you've been. Was at Oral Roberts for many years before he was at North Dakota State. How many years were you at Oral Roberts, Coach?
back 8. I was back there for 8 years.
8 years. And am I missing anything else besides Oral Roberts?
Yeah, I mean, I was junior college, Missouri State, ORU, Fort Smith. Bounced around quite a bit. So,
yeah. Gotcha. So, Oral Roberts, Missouri State, as he mentioned, Fort Smith, and now is at North Dakota State University, a member of the Summit League, where they have done a great job. Went to the NCAA tournament coach when? 2018?
Not last year, but the 2 years before that, both years went NCAA tournament and then lost by one this year at ORU.
Yeah, to Oral Roberts.
One foul call away from going back for the third time.
That was a hell of a game, man. You guys made a great run though in the second half. That was a game that I enjoyed. I actually was working on a scout when that game was going on. And I was like, wait, let me put this on pause for a second because the game was getting really good. So, coaches, especially young coaches, Coach Hooten is a head coach. Coach Brown will be a head coach here soon. And he's somebody that I think a lot of people should get to try to know over the course of time. He's done a remarkable job at North Dakota State as the associate head coach. They have been one of the powerhouse teams in the Summit League for many years now. And I will go ahead and let Coach Kyan Brown, KB, give his journey.
First of all, hey, thanks guys. Anytime I get a chance to share my story, I'm very appreciative. I've known Ryan for a long time. So the fact that he invited me to come on here, I don't take for granted. So it's I'm very thankful that I get to share my story with you guys. I'll try to keep it short. Very much like Coach Hooten, don't really talk about myself a whole bunch. But nevertheless, in this kind of situation, it's kind of what you're forced to do. So I'll just kind of give you my background and kind of go from there. Like I was saying earlier, I was born in Ketchikan, Alaska, which is a small island up there in Alaska. So people think they're from a small town down here in the lower 48 when they're an hour outside of Minneapolis. Is a bunch of, you got to keep it clean because we're recording this. But when you're an island with 22 miles of concrete, you can't go anywhere by boat or plane. So you really kind of are in a little bubble up there and you really don't know any better. And so I played baseball and basketball, and some reason I was kicking a soccer ball at some point because they didn't have football on the island. So I grew up there for 17 years, and then I moved my junior year. Actually, I started my junior year in Ketchikan, and I moved my junior year in October down to Van Buren, Arkansas, which is right outside Fort Smith, because my grandparents lived down there. I actually moved down there for sports, and I moved to Van Buren, Arkansas to live with my grandparents, and rolled right in, met the coach, started up, didn't start my junior year because even though I think I was better than the kid and was told I was better than the kid, he was there his whole life and he was graduating, he was a senior. So I was getting some Division II looks my junior year. I was no great player by any stretch of the imagination, but I was getting some looks and playing pretty good. That summer before my senior year, I'm working out. Back then you could buy those damn strength shoes, which were terrible on your Achilles, but I was out there running those damn strength shoes, and they didn't call me ground bound Kyan Brown for nothing. I mean, I couldn't jump over a damn phone book. So I had to utilize what the good Lord gave me, which is a little bit of thickness, a little bit of size. So I was trying everything I can. Anyway, I go into my senior year. First couple of games are going really well. I get a stress fracture in my shin, and I'm out my senior year. And it was, at that time when you're young and basketball is your whole life, it was, you think of your time, you're like, this is the hardest thing I've ever gone through, and my scholarship kind of offers went away. I didn't really have, coaches weren't messing with me anymore. And I was going to play baseball right at the end of the season. So I jumped right into the baseball world right when I started getting healthy again. And we went to the state championship or state playoffs that year in basketball, and then went right to baseball. And we had a really good baseball team. We took third in the state that year. And after baseball, go to graduation. And I remember graduating high school, vividly pulling out of the parking lot going, what the hell am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do? I don't know what's next for me. And so I had a really good high school coach that was good friends with Doc Sadler, who just moved back in town and was an assistant coach at Fort Smith Junior College, right across the street. And so he goes, let me call Doc and I'll see if I can get you to go over there and just try out one night. And Charles Ripley was the head coach at the time. And I said, Coach, anything. I'll do anything. And so I went over there and tried out, played pickup game one night with him, and finished playing pickup. Charles Ripley walks over to me, head coach, and goes, hey, I'm offering you a full scholarship to come over here to Fort Smith Junior College and play here. And mine was blown. I was like, I got a scholarship offer. I get to play ball. These guys seem like nice guys. I'm going to go, I'm playing junior college and I don't have to pay for school. So sure enough, I signed on the dotted line. My parents are ecstatic. Needless to say, I played behind a guy named Kelvin Howell and a guy named Festus Hawkins. And Festus went on to play at Illinois, and Kelvin Howell played at K-State. So my freshman year, let's just say I wasn't getting a ton of minutes. And one of my favorite stories of junior college is, you know, of course, at the time you think, man, I just need my shot. You know, I just need my shot. I'm just waiting for my opportunity. Once I get that, I'm going to show coach what I'm made of. Well, I remember the game. Festus fouls twice. Kelvin Howe comes in. He fouls twice. There's 13 minutes left to go in the first half. And Brown, you're in. I rip the jersey off. I come in. I score 13 points. I have like 4 or 5 rebounds. I'm leading all scores at half. I'm going back to the locker room. I'm high-fiving my teammates. I'm like, they're like, hell, where's that been? Where's that? I mean, I'm like, they've seen it. They got me now. I'm shining. It's all over from here. I don't play in the second half. I don't get off the bench in the second half. And I probably shouldn't have, because those guys are way, way better than me. But nevertheless, I finished that year playing minimal minutes at best, and have those guys are both graduating. I have every intention of going back. When you're born in Alaska, like I said, you're in a bubble, and it's hard to explain, but I knew nothing about college athletics. And when I say I knew nothing about college, I mean, I knew nothing. I sat at that time, our first practice was at 12:01 midnight, because that was the first time Division I coaches could be on the road. I didn't know why we were practicing 12:01 midnight. I just showed up when coach told me to show up. So I'm sitting in the gym and I'm talking to this old guy in a chair, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? He's like, I'm doing good. And I'm wondering why this old guy's in the gym, you know, hanging out, and my teammates aren't coming over next to me. And he's like, where are you from? I'm like, I'm from Alaska. He's like, okay. I say, I've been there a couple times. Like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. You just watching some ball tonight? I said, yeah, I'm just going to watch some ball tonight. So I get up. I said, all right, we're about to start. So it's nice to meet you. I get up and walk over to my teammates, and my teammate's like, KB, you know who you're talking to, right? And I was like, no, man, I don't know who I'm talking to. Like, he's like, that's Eddie Sutton. This is how dumb I was. I still didn't know who Eddie Sutton was, but I had to play it off like I knew. I was like, that's Eddie Sutton? I had no idea. I was talking to the head coach at Oklahoma State over there, just BSing it. I mean, I was just naive as all get out. So I say that because my next story is, my dad comes down from Alaska. He was a successful carpenter, had his own business up there. He was going back and forth from Alaska and Arkansas. He goes, I read in the paper about this camp, this Jerry Mullins camp on Oral Roberts campus. It's in July. You want to go up to this camp? I'll pay for it. I'm like, yeah, I'll go to this camp. I had every intention of going back to Fort Smith. I go to this camp, and I must have played pretty well. And ORU, I don't know if they were cheating at the time. They weren't supposed to talk to me, but they invited my dad and me to come down after the camp to go down and talk to the coaches. And so we go down and we talk to the coaches. They offered me a full scholarship. It's late. They had 1 year left. Baylor called me. Oklahoma State wanted me to walk on for a year, and I wasn't good enough to play at those places. I just tricked them for a day. They had one scholarship, you know, so had to cut my phone, started blowing up. But my mom always wanted me to play at a religious school, and she always said Oral Roberts University. So I went up there. They offered me a full ride. I took it. You know, played won a conference championship our first year, lost to Valparaiso, didn't go to the NCAA tournament, and had a very fun time at ORU. Good career. About what, you know, I was a great screener, great teammate. I wasn't a great offensive weapon by any stretch. So pro basketball was not in the cards for me, and I knew it. But I fell in love with the game. I fell in love with the profession. I wanted to coach. This is what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do anything else. I wanted to be a basketball coach. I wanted to impact lives. I wanted to give back, and I couldn't see myself doing anything else. And so I asked Scott Sutton, who was my head coach at the time, I said, Coach, you know, how do I get in this business? And he goes, hey, you should call Doc up, your old junior college coach, and see if you can go down and be assistant coach for him. And I was like, that's a great idea, Coach. I'm calling Doc up right now. So I called Doc up. He's like, KB, I'd love to talk to you about, you know, being assistant coach. When do you want to meet? I said, Coach, it's 1 hour and 40 minutes. I can drive down there tomorrow. I'd love to talk to you. He goes, all right, I'll see you tomorrow. Come on down. We'll do lunch and hang out. I drive down. I'm thinking, this is going great. This is going to be super easy. And I sit down with Doc. He coached me, said, hey, KB, I love your energy. I love your passion. I'd love to have you on this staff with me right here. There's one problem. I said, what's that, Coach? Because I'm fired up. I can make anything work. He goes, good, because I don't have any money to pay you anything. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. And if you do take this job, which doesn't pay anything, I'll give you a cubicle. I'll give you keys to the gym. You can work guys out. But if you do take this job, I want you to work it like you're getting $40,000. So you got to show up every day. You got to be around here. You got to monitor kids' academics. You got to learn the ropes. You have to do all these. And so I called a couple coaches, guys that I knew and trusted. That's how you get into college coaching. They just don't hand out jobs. You got to pay your dues. And so I call my dad, who's a self-made guy, and this is one of my favorite stories in coaching. I call him and I tell my dad, hey, I know what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this Fort Smith deal in junior college. And he goes, great. What are they going to pay you? And I said, it doesn't pay anything. And he's like, Kyan, your time is worth something. I said, yeah, Dad, I know, but that's not how this profession works. He's like, Kyan, you're not listening to me. Your time is, he just kept going on. You're saying your time is worth something. Your time's like, okay, I get what you're saying, but I'm doing this and it doesn't pay anything, so I'll figure it out. And so fast forward a couple of years later, I hear him telling some people and some boosters up in the stands, like, oh, if you want to get in this business, you got to pay your dues. That's what it's all about. I told my son that's what he had to do to get. He was so full of shit. It was unbelievable. Oh, sorry for my language, but it was unbelievable. So I got into coaching there. I worked with Doc Sadler, Jeremy Cox, David Anwar, great guys, unbelievable. Doc left. Jeremy got the job the next year. I got a huge raise. I made $3,000 that second year. So I was really rolling the money. I went from making nothing my first year, working at a YMCA on Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 10 o'clock at night in the dark, refereeing football games, which I knew nothing about. I was throwing the flag all over the field. My buddy just gave me a job to take pity on me. So I'd ref to make some extra money right there. Next year, I got $3,000. And then the third year, Barry Henson called me and he wanted me to be the operations guy who coached me at Missouri State, or coached me at ORU, who's now at Missouri State. He wanted me to be operations guy. And then I made $13,000, 500 as the operations guy at Missouri State University. So I was, I'm recently married. I got, a daughter on the way, and I'm struggling right here to make it happen. But Jeremy's telling me it's a no-brainer. You got to get in Division I. You got to get in Division I. Barry Henson tells me, hey, listen, and if you take this job, you're not going to get promoted to assistant coach. I don't move my assistant coaches up from operations position. I was like, all right, okay, I guess I'm coming to Springfield. So I go to Springfield, and by the good Lord's blessings and being in the right place at the right time, an assistant coach left and Barry moved me up. And so it was by my fourth year that I was making almost, like I said, I don't want to use numbers, but just, things have changed, but I was making $30,000 in the third spot in my fourth year at Missouri State University. Now I'm 25, 26 years old. And in my head, I'm going, I've made it. I'm a Missouri Valley assistant coach. I can't believe it. I came from, I didn't know anyone. I've made it. I'm pumped up. We worked there 3 years, and all of a sudden we get let go. And I remember this, just as we're telling the story and talking about the profession for you young guys getting into it. I remember Doc Sadler calling me the day we got let go. And he said, well, Kyan, now it's official. Now you're really a college basketball coach. Because no one's really a college basketball coach until you kind of go through that rigmarole, which I know he was just trying to make me feel better, but there had a little bit of truth to it right there as well. But so I got a wife, I got 2 kids, and I don't have a job, and they're taking care of me. And my wife's looking at me going, what's next? And I'm working AAU tournaments. I'm going to games. I'm calling every contact I know. I'm hitting the phone, and for 2 months, I got nothing shaking. I got nothing going on. And she's like, okay, is there anything else you should be doing? You should be having some more things happening right here, right? I mean, I was like, I think this is how it works, babe. And then all of a sudden, in the span of a week, ORU offers me a spot, and Bob Hoffman, who just got the job at Mercer, offers me a spot. And I ended up going back to my alma mater and working for Scott Sutton for 8 years, which is a fantastic 8 years. I had a lot of success down there, won a couple conference championships. And then I got a call from Dave Richmond, who I knew a long time, who was the head coach at North Dakota State University, offered me a spot up here. And I thought it was a good opportunity with what they were doing financially and what they were doing with the facilities to take this next step to move to North Dakota State. And we came up here, we went to back-to-back NCAA tournaments, was 1 game away from the tournament this year, 1 point away, right down the stretch. And I tell people this all the time, and I truly mean it. There's tough days in it, but I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and I feel like I've never worked a day in my life. And it's so much fun. It's so much rewarding. And yeah, the wins are great. And I'm different than a lot of people. I know there was a catchphrase going on around there a long time ago. It says that you got to hate losing more than you like winning. Everyone says that. Everyone's like, you got to hate losing more than you like winning. Bump that junk, man. I love winning, man. I freaking love it, man. There's nothing better than a road win when watching the other fans leaving right there and celebrating with your guys in the locker room. That stuff is what I don't know if it's glass half full. I don't know how you want to label it, but that's what just watching those guys have success on the basketball court is something that's truly, truly special to me. And I remember this year we were even sitting in a game before we played Kansas the year on the road, and we had a chance to beat Kansas on the road this year. And we did the scout right before the game. They walked down to the bus, and we're sitting there, assistant coaches and the head coach, and we're all quiet. And I remember it's just dead quiet in there. And I looked at my boss and said, "Hey, you think accountants get this fired up on April 15th?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "This is the greatest damn profession in the world, man. We're going to play Kansas right now. We're going to do something. We're going to sit in the front row right there and play the Jayhawks against Bill Self and give it a shot." And so it's a great, great profession. I know at times it's hard to get into, and we can get in the question and answers. I'm trying to wrap it up here. It's a tough profession to get into. It's probably not for everyone. I'm very blessed. I'm sure Coach Hooten is too. So everyone else, the college coach, you have to have a spouse that understands, because it's not, you can actually just throw the word profession out, man. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle for not only you, it's a lifestyle for your wife. It's a lifestyle for your kids. You're gone so much, and it's a sacrifice made by everybody, but it's, once you kind of get into it, everyone just kind of gets on board, and you get to do some really, really cool, special things. And I would just, as we're going through, and I'm kind of jumping all over the place a little bit, is for young coaches getting into it. And for me too, I'm telling this as my own stories. It's easy to look at other people, and you see other people advance and move on and go to high major. I mean, I've been a low major, mid-major assistant coach for a long time, and I haven't got the chance to be at the Big 12 or Power 5 conference. And I sure would like to throw a UCLA shirt on and walk in a gym and see what I can get done recruiting with that on my chest. I hear how hard it is. I'd sure like to give it a shot. When I was recruiting at ORU, I had to recruit kids that couldn't go in a girl's dorm. Couldn't even put a foot in a girl's dorm. If you can recruit there, hell, you can recruit anywhere. But I would just challenge you guys too, is if you guys are getting into coaching, you see colleagues moving, be happy for them. Be happy for your, there's enough light to go around. I think one of my favorite lines is, comparison is the stealer of joy. Don't fall in that trap with social media and with Twitter and all those things right there. It's easy to fall in the trap, and I've done it. We're like, why am I not getting my opportunity? I know Coach Hooten touched on timing. Timing's a funny deal. It's being in the right place at the right time, and you can be 1 minute away here, one play away here from life-changing opportunity. But enjoy the journey. Enjoy your journey. It's meant for you. And if you're coaching, we get 13 scholarships, we get 14 guys. I try to enjoy those kids, man. It's such a cool deal where you get them for 4 years, and you get them in that sweet time where they're leaving the house, the nest for the first time. They don't really know what to do. And you get to kind of help mentor them to hope that when they're done, they never get to go back home. They get to go out in the world and be professionals and be men. And when you get those calls back about, they're being dads and they want to come to your game on the road, and that's just really, really special stuff. So that's kind of my journey right there, Ryan. I got other things about program and all those different things, but I don't know exactly what you want me to touch on. Another thing was, I heard this from an agent the other day, is don't be afraid of the long game. Don't get caught up in just trying to get in and lie and cheat your way to the top real quick, because it might happen, but this is such a close profession that you're eventually going to get discovered, and you're eventually going to find out, and you'll be out of it before too long. So be a good person, try to do what's right. One of my 4 things that I don't know if this helps you at all, but things that I write on my board that I try to live by a little bit is, 4 things, which is, 1 is honesty. Be honest with your players, be honest during the recruiting process. It's not always going to get you the player, and you might tell people stuff they don't want to hear. But if you're honest and trying to be from a spot that's real, they'll appreciate it, and you're not going to burn bridges. The second one, if you guys haven't guessed it, it's enthusiasm. One of my favorite quotes of all time is Ralph Waldo Emerson, is nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. And I'm a huge believer of, no one's making, we're not making players come to this university and stay at this university. No one's making me coach. We're choosing to do this. So if you're choosing to do this, attack each day with enthusiasm, and let those guys, when they see you coming, You can't trust a moody person. When a player sees you coming down the hall, I want that player to know what they're going to get when they see me. Regardless of what day I'm having at home or things that I'm battling, I want that player to know when he sees me that he's going to get a hug and he's going to get my best, and I'm going to check on him and I'm going to try to give him up. Another one I heard from Mike Rhodes that I've added to my thing a little bit was appreciation. I thought this was a really good way of saying it was be appreciative of people. Use please, use thank you. Tell them how much they mean to you. I think sometimes in societies, especially in men, we got to be tough guys and we got to be cool guys sometimes. And, you don't always have to show your emotions. I really want to tell our guys, like after workouts, if our guys really give it that day in workouts and they really show up and they're coachable, I want to tell them, man, thank you. Thank you that you guys show up today with a great attitude and you guys got after it because it means a lot. And the last one, I think that if you're going to win any games, you got to have toughness. You got to have guys that are tough, and it's got to be something you preach every day, something you got to show them right there when you're not feeling good, battling through. And there's mental toughness and there's physical toughness. But and they kind of make the funny thing heat, honesty, enthusiasm, appreciation, toughness, bring that heat every day, bring the heat. If you do that, I think, it's helped me. I don't know if it helps you guys at all right there, but that's something. If I can stick by those things, if I can be honest, if I can bring enthusiasm, I can tell people thank you, and we can bring a little toughness along the way. I think, our team will have some success, and hopefully with them having success, I'll have success on their backs because a rising tide raises all ships. So I don't know. I was all over the map there. RP, was that?
No, you're good. You're good, man. I'm getting text messages right now about the job that you're doing right now, that you got a ton of energy, man. So, and that's
I had a cup of coffee before I got on here. Let's get
it. Listen, we'll go ahead and open things up for questions for both coaches.
All right, both coaches, Darrell Robinson, head boys basketball coach, Denver, Illinois. Thank y'all for being on. Coach Brown, I think I met you like a few years back in Tulsa. Yeah. My wife's a ORU alum. That's why I got the shirt on and stuff too, though. So yeah, yeah. But question I got for both of you guys: what was your biggest coaching disappointment, and what was your biggest coaching achievement due to your growth?
Want to take that, Coach?
Golly. Wow. Biggest coaching disappointment. Man, I would guess if you were basing it off of maybe wins and losses, I guess you'd always just look at maybe the biggest game, which is usually towards the end of the year, right? I think maybe the last team that I ever was a part of at Tarleton, that was the year that I think we probably had the best team in the country and got beat at home to go to the Elite Eight. That was pretty tough. And then really, to be honest with you, maybe one of the worst defeats, or maybe just one that set me back mentally and hurt the most, might be this year. And for a lot of weird reasons. I think everybody on this call went through COVID, obviously, and went through a lot of things this year. And we had a tough year of it, man. Our whole team got it. Every coach on our staff got it. And man, there was a lot of ups and downs, not to mention going into our season, we had 8 new players this year. And so I'll be honest, I mean, I didn't think we were going to be very good. We started off the year, we lost by 20 or 30 at SMU, lost by 30 at Tech, got beat by a really good Boise team by 20 or 30. I mean, we came home 0-3, and we just kind of kept grinding and putting it together. And then the next thing I know, I looked up and, man, we won like 10 games in a row and like 15 out of 16. And so I think the reason I say that at the end of the year, it was the worst loss is because, not to mention just COVID and like what we all went through, right? But then also just the ebb and flow and the ups and downs of not thinking you're going to be good and then getting to where, like, I thought we had a chance to be one of the best teams I've ever had. And we were, but then we had a chance to play for a championship. You know, we played in a championship game at home against SFA, and we lost like by 4. And so that was probably one of my, I would have to say, one of my worst losses, just because, again, because of COVID and what our guys went through, you know, not being able to practice all the time and just all those things. I was really hurt for them more than anything because of what they went through. And I really wanted a championship for those guys. Best win, golly. I don't know. I mean, like Coach Brown said, I mean, I think they all are good. We try to celebrate every single win, whether it's against an NAIA school or a D3 school, or, you know, winning's hard. I mean, it's hard to do. It's hard to beat people. It's hard to win games. And just think how much work you put into just trying to win one game. I mean, we watch film probably for 3 or 4 days, 2 or 3 days. We go through scouting reports for 2 or 3 days. So I think they're all, I don't know. I just think all wins are good. And I like to celebrate all wins, at least for that night before we worry about the next one. So I don't know. I don't know in particular any one game more than the other.
I would say, I know Coach touched on, you know, the wins and losses aspect of right there. And God, I mean, I got so many losses rattling in my head right now that, I mean, I'm up 17 second half against Tulsa at our place, and we end up losing. And I mean, just absolute brutal loss. Or this year down 25 in the championship game to go into the tournament, and we come back and we tie it up, and they give them a call, and A. Smith goes 1 for 2. And we drive to the basket, and we get a no call, and I mean, so it's at Kansas this year. I mean, you got a chance to win. We make one more shot, we're going to beat Kansas. You know, some things that can be life-changing deals, you know, just kind of go your way, and you relive on those. But I think a lot of times things work themselves out. I think in the long, you know, you're gonna lose on a buzzer beater, and you're gonna win on a buzzer beater. And if you're in this profession long enough, that things just tend to kind of work themselves out. The things that stick out to me, the sad things and stuff like that, is, you know, maybe the players you couldn't touch, you couldn't get to, that didn't take academics seriously, or you know, people you might lose along the way. You know, yeah, I mean, players, managers, you know, some people get sick, and
Man, yeah, Coach Brown just kind of rattled a few more off. My last year at Tarleton, we were playing in the tournament, in the conference tournament. We already were the number 1 seed, but we were still playing in the conference tournament. We were down at home. We were number 1 in the country, and we were down at home to Kingsville at halftime by 30 at home, and we were number 1 in the country. And this is a good coaching deal. I remember being young. I mean, I was 30. I was in my early 30s. And I remember going into the locker room, and I was thinking, man, if I was a head coach right now, I would go in there and I would absolutely come unglued on those guys. And Coach was the most calmest. He was like, we're going to go in there and be positive, and we're going to get this done. And I'm thinking to myself, you got to be kidding. Then we came back, we were down 30 at halftime, and we came back and won that game by like 8. It was the most amazing thing. But, you know, I think if he'd have went in there at halftime and if he'd have just completely undressed those guys, I'm not sure we came back and do that. I mean, it was amazing. We had great players. I mean, we had a guy named Tim Burnett who was one of the best mid-major, or one of the best Division II players in the country, transferred from UNC Wilmington, San Antonio kid. And I mean, he scored like the first 10 points of the second half. And I mean, he scored like 30, I think, by himself in the second half. But I remember that and as being a good one. And then a bad one actually was just like a year or two ago. We were up 18 at Mississippi State with about 10 minutes left in the game, and we found a way to lose that game. So I think, like Coach Brown said, I mean, those are the ones that I'm sitting up there, I look up at the scoreboard, and we're up 18 at Mississippi State with, 10 minutes to go. And, you know, and I got a freshman point guard and a junior college, first college game of the year of his career, Division I. I mean, those guys got a little bit nervous. And, when you're playing at a place like that, all of a sudden the whistle seems to completely change. And, you look up but that was one that definitely, I remember that one now, definitely stuck with me.
Awesome. Thanks, coaches.
Thanks, Drew.
This one's go ahead, coach.
Sorry. I guess I'll go to next. Justin Bailey here at Pitt State. KB, the only question I got for you, man, just can you send me those recipes on the grill, please?
I'm telling you right now, man, I'm figuring it out as I go. I did my first pork butt on Saturday, and I'm addicted, man. You told me a long time ago I'd be in a smoke, and I would have thought it was something else, but now I got a Traeger. I'm kind of all into that lifestyle. I'm only allowed to do a couple things, Bailey, and I'm allowed to work. Well, let's start with an order. I'm allowed to be around my family. I'm allowed to work. So if I'm around my family, I better be doing something to feed them. And then occasionally on the nice days of weather, my wife lets me go play around the golf. But don't ask me to play in no men's league. Don't ask me to play no poker night. Don't ask me to go I do 3 things and that's it. Cause my time is so spread out. So if I'm at home, I gotta do something on that Traeger, big dog.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I like watching from afar, man. So keep doing your thing.
I appreciate it, buddy.
Coach Hooten, man, I got a question for you. And I think a lot of people on this call already know you've been one of the most consistent winningest head coaches in the Southland, going to the WAC now. What do you think has helped with that besides getting good players? A lot of people say, he gets players, he could do this, but besides getting good players, what has helped you, stay at the top of the conference?
Well, I think KB mentioned it a while ago when he went through some of the list of things, and all those things I thought were really good. And a lot of the things that we try to do here. But I think the biggest thing that we've done is that we've probably set just a culture. And I know that's a random word that everybody throws around because everybody's culture is different. I think everybody's definition of what a culture is different. But I think that's the biggest thing that we've done is we've just established it year in and year out, no matter what, whether we have got a guy like Zach Nuttall, who was player of the year in our league, or whether or not, we've got a big guy, or whether we've got a point guard. We're just always going to try to do a few things no matter what. And number one thing that we're going to do is play hard. And that's non-negotiable. I think that no matter what, we're going to play hard and we're going to work hard every day. And we've been blessed. I mean, in my 11 years here, I think that we've done that for the most part, because I think that there'll be some years when you miss out on some recruits, or you get a guy injured, or something happens here or there, and you're still going to want to be consistent and win. And in order to do that, you got to play hard. I think the second thing that we've done is we've tried to guard. I think that's the other thing is, offense comes and goes. I was told a long time ago to try to recruit offensive players because you can always try to teach them how to play defense. But I think a big part of that is, teaching a guy how to play defense, but you got to want to do that too. And you got to instill that, I think, in your culture is the want to and the willingness, no matter what, every day we're going to guard and get after it. And then probably the third thing, which really alludes to the first two, in my opinion, is toughness. I probably try to act like I'm a tough guy. I don't know how tough I am. I got an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old or 15-year-old. So I'm always trying to act like I'm tough. That way they'll get a little bit hard, get up off the ground and play a little bit harder and do things that they need to do. And, I think it's funny how we look back at our parents' stories about, how they walked to school in 10 inches of snow, and, how they had to get a job when they were 12 years old and all that kind of stuff. But I just think the toughness thing is something that we've tried to hang our hat on, just trying to be tough, every year. And, and that's not like fighting or anything like that. I just think it's just being tough. And, a lot of that is, making guys think they're tough too. I'm not saying that every guy on our team is, we've got some guys on our team that are not as tough as I want them to be. But I think at the end of the day, it's my job, it's our staff's job, it's our culture's job to get those guys to thinking they're tough. And, a great example is our championship team in 2019. We started off that year really slow, and we weren't the greatest of teams. And we had a couple guys that I wouldn't consider the toughest guys in the world. But I just think because of our culture those guys really started believing. And by the time that Christmas came and January came, you know, we were pretty good. And then, you know, we ended up going 16-2 in a league, which is really hard to do. So I guess those three things are the things that have led us to this consistency. But man, more than anything, it's been our staff. I mean, I've had great assistant coaches. You know, we've had guys that have gone on and gotten jobs. Obviously, you guys all know Alvin Brooks and, you know, Terrence Rencher and, you know, Omar Lowry. I mean, I can name them all. I mean, we've had Matt Breyer. We've had some great assistant coaches here. And, you know, Chris Mudge has been with me all 11 years and he hadn't gone anywhere. So I just think it's just really been our staff and, you know, and the culture that we've kind of formed.
No, that makes sense. That's great, Coach. And I appreciate both of you guys. Thank you.
Okay, guys, this is Take Price. Coach Hooten,
The GOAT.
Coach Brown. Hey, thanks, man, for all your comments and sharing your journeys. For your young guys, every journey is going to be different. But Coach Hooten, you have created a culture with your guys play hard. I've been, unfortunately, have to coach against those guys. But take, for instance, if you had a soft guy in your program, how would you handle that situation? Because these guys are going to try to do the same thing, have guys that play hard, toughness. What happens when you have a guy that you thought was tough when you recruited him, but all of a sudden when he got to your program, he wasn't as tough as you thought he would? How would you handle that situation?
Well, first and foremost, that's a really, really good question. Second of all, as everybody knows, Coach Price or your team obviously kicked our butt in the conference tournament this year. And this is what I want to say about that game. You know, we had a really good team, I thought, this year, and I really felt like we had a chance to go pretty far. You know, we were going to play Abilene in the second game, and I'll be honest, I was more concerned about Coach Price's team in that first round than I was Abilene in the second round. And the reason why is because Coach did such a great job with his culture and how tough and how hard his guys play. And I watched his team. We beat Coach Price. We beat them at Lamar towards the end of the year in a really, really tough game. I mean, a tough game. Could have went either way. And after that game, he didn't lose another game. And I could just watch his team continue to take his personality, and they just continued to get tougher and tougher and tougher. And when we got ready to play you, Coach, that night, I knew how hard that game was going to be because I knew that your team had totally bought in to the culture that you wanted and to the toughness. And you guys, I mean, y'all kicked our butt that day. I know, you know, we had our opportunities to win the game, but you guys, I mean, y'all physically manhandled us that day. So as far as having a guy in a program, I think that's a soft guy. And I know this is being filmed and, you know, obviously we want to keep, you know, names out of it or whatever, but I'll use my team this year as a great example. You know, I had a young man on my team this year that, you know, was what I would call a softer type player. And he had a hell of a year and got some accolades and all kinds of things. But man, it was a struggle. And I think, you know, for all you young guys out there, as an assistant coach, you guys play a huge integral part of that, because what happens is if you have a head coach like Coach Price or myself, you know, you're coming to practice every day with expectations, and those expectations for that young man are to fit in and to do all the other things that you're asking all those other guys to do. So the toughest guy on your team, you know, if he's diving on the floor and he's getting loose balls or he's playing physical or he's playing through fouls, you're expecting that guy who's not as tough to do those same things. And so you're going to hold that guy accountable. You know, every coach has a different way of doing it. I like to think that, you know, I try to call them out, but I try to do it in a respectful way. I try to do it in a way that's trying to encourage them to get tougher and to be tougher. But I think that's where assistant coaches really come into play, because, you know, when practice is over, that's a great time for you to go over and say, look, man, you know, he's hard on you today, but man, you got to get tougher. You know, this is the level that you have to get at. And the guy that you're competing against right now, see all the things that he's doing. He's beating you to loose balls. He's he's diving on the floor. He's playing harder and physical. When coach gets on him, he doesn't take it personal. He keeps playing. He worries about the next play. And so I just think that, nowadays kids are different. I mean, kids take things a lot more personal to coach than I think when you and I first started coaching. And so I just think that you got to fill each guy out, because everybody's different. Some kids like to be called out. Some kids like confrontation. Some kids like to be challenged. Whereas other kids, you got to bring them over to the side, or you got to get an assistant coach to talk to them. But it's tough, and coach, I mean, I think when it's all said and done, when those guys can't eventually get into what you want them to do, that's when they get to the portal. And, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I lost 2 great players to the portal this year. I lost a couple others, but I lost 2 great players to the portal this year. And, one of them I'd like to have back right now. And, the other one was difficult for him to adapt to our culture and how tough you got to be and how hard you got to play all the time. And, I just think that, the hardest thing for you guys out here on this call that are assistant coaches is trying to find the right fit and the right guy that can play for your boss. And I say that because I've been there, man. I was an assistant coach for 17 years. Lon Reisman was totally different recruiting for than Bob Marlin. It was just different. And so I think that that's the biggest thing that you have to do is, you may be an assistant coach out there right now and you may have your hands on 1 million players, or you may know a lot of guys that are super talented, but can that guy fit the person that you're working for? And I think that's important, because he can be the best player in the world, right, Coach Price? But if you bring him in there and he never really buys into your culture of being tough, then he's really not going to help you, right?
Coach Brown, I've heard you mention your journey. You got fired, and your wife and your kids depending on you. If you could express to these guys how important, first of all, I say all wives got a place in heaven.
Amen to
They
that.
married to a coach. They special.
Yeah.
Because when you come home and she's not supportive, you probably not going to be married long, or you probably won't be coaching long. But if you got one to stick by you through thick and thin, you're good. But how did you handle that situation at home without prying into your personal life? How did you handle that situation at home with your wife once you lost your job?
Coach, that's an unbelievable question. It's really good. And I always say all the time, the best recruit I ever signed was my wife. It's not even close. I mean, we dated 4 years before we got married. Not only is she awesome, she's smoking hot. And so, I mean, I'm very, very blessed to have her in my life. And so the best thing that ever happened, and I'm going to say his name because he needs to hear this. The best thing that ever happened for my wife is that I worked for a guy named Jeremy Cox my first 2 years. And he taught me the ropes. He taught me what coaching was. I was a young guy that didn't know what coaching was. Hell, I thought coaches just showed up at practice and you guys kind of rolled the balls out and yelled at some kids. And then you went home and you had a barbecue and players just showed up on their own. So I was very naive when I even got into the coaching side of things. And so we were coming back every night and working. And so both of us learned a lot by being together during that tough time and being together, what this profession really was. And so as I started making my way up in the profession, I got to Missouri State and thinking that I made it as a young coach at 26 years old, an assistant coach in the Missouri Valley. And we knew it was coming. You kind of know when it's coming. The rumors are out there. People are swirling. And this profession is it's a tough deal. And we played our last conference game and we're driving home and we get the news that we're getting let go. And it's tough because as a man, and she wanted to stay home with the kids, and you're the breadwinner. And I was always raised, I don't know if it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I was always rather, if you're going to have a family, it's your job to provide for them. And I'll go dig a ditch, I'll go paint a house, I'll go bartend, whatever it takes to go make money and I'll work. It doesn't matter. And I mean, when time goes by, it's important to be with someone that's understanding of what you're going through and is kind of and dealt with it. Because honestly, if it was someone different or someone that would have been, hey, you're getting out of this and we're going back to live with my parents and we're doing this. I mean, we have 5 people in our family, coach, and everyone's been born in a different state. I mean, think about that. We don't have family babysitting down the road. We never have. Her family's from Pennsylvania. My family's from Alaska, and we've been working all around the Midwest. So she's a trooper, man. And it's to have a good one. I mean, I don't understand these guys that juggle 2, 3, 4 women. I can't understand the one I got, and I'm lucky to have her by my side. So I'm just very thankful that she's understanding. And then when you do have success, coach, and you get a call and you go home and you tell her you're moving to North Dakota. I mean, holy shit. I mean, she told me several times that the first winter was as bad as the next 2. We both would have been moving, but she goes with the flow. She loves our kids. She loves me. And I'm very, very fortunate to have someone like that go through my life with me. And like, it's not for everyone, because it's not just you that go through it. And everyone needs to understand that she goes through it too. She takes the losses with you. She takes when you don't get recruits. She takes the job opportunities you don't. What I think for me, what I always tell my players, and I mentioned earlier, was it's time management. I don't do like when I first got married. When I first was young, I played men's league and I did all these extracurricular activities, and I don't do that stuff, man. I go home. I always call her, and she's not listening, right? I'm not bragging on her too much. I don't need her to get the big head, but I always call. She's my first call. She's anything good happens in my life, anything bad happens in my life, she's that first call. And when you have someone like that, the only person you can think about is sharing that kind of news, whether it's good, bad, that's you're living with, that's huge. That's huge in your life. So you got to navigate, but more importantly, coach, you just got to find someone that understands you and trusts you along the process. But that's if I didn't have her, that's a great question.
Thank you, Coach.
This is Ryan Wall. I'm the head coach at Texas A&M Texarkana. Coach Hooten, I wanted to be the joke that my dad used to coach at Sam Houston State in '91 with Larry Brown, and we moved to Huntsville, and we live across the street from the school or from the prison there. And I go, Dad, why are we living so close to the prison? He goes, this is the safest place that you can ever live. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, if they try to sneak out or try to get out of the jail, they're not going to stay around. They're out of here. And so I was like, okay, well, it makes sense. That makes sense, Dad. So that was just a funny there in Huntsville right there. But, to both of y'all, I'm an NAIA coach. I've been an NAIA coach for 10 years. I'm just like you, Coach Hooten. We have 3.1 scholarships, so we got a little bit more than you did, but we're still trying to navigate through the waters like y'all did. But as an NAIA coach, how did you? I know Coach Brown, you weren't an NAIA coach, but you were a JUCO. How did you network to grow in the business? Because constantly, at my level, I got to reach out to people to network because I don't have players that that can play for y'all. Most of my guys are kickbacks, but the network process of trying to grow in the business and move up the ladder. What would be some advice to me to try to do some things like that?
Well, I mean, I'll go first because I think this was kind of what I had to do. I felt like at one point in time, if I stayed at Tarleton too long and, I was going to be labeled a Division II guy. But now that I'm a Division I head coach and I look back at that, I mean, shoot, man, when you look at NAIA guys and you look at D2 guys, to me, those are the guys that end up being the best Division I assistant coaches and head coaches. And the reason why is because of the grind. When you're an NAIA and a D2 coach, there's no such thing as, recruiting periods. I mean, we were bringing guys in at Tarleton like 12th class day. In NAIA, you recruit year round, and we were getting guys that were bounce back guys and guys that, would go home, or guys that, didn't make it academically. So I just think the networking is just, I used to call every Division I coach I could looking for transfers, or if I went to Jerry Mullins's deal, I was sitting in the stands and just meeting people and getting to know everybody. And I think the biggest thing is networking is great. And I do really mean that. I mean, I think everybody has to network, but more importantly than that is, I like, for example, nowadays, I think, there's so much social media, and I think people look at that stuff, whether it be a positive or a negative. And so I just think, like KB said, I think, the person that you are, who are you as a person? I think that's what people really need to get to know, because, like I have an assistant job open right now. And, the greatest thing is like all your friends and buddies calling you and telling you about a person, or you need to hire this guy. But, the thing about hiring people is that those people don't know exactly who you have on your staff in the current. They don't know exactly the personality of each guy on your staff. And as a head coach, you've got to mix and match those personalities. For example, a person's strengths and weaknesses, whether it be recruiting or coaching, but also a person's strengths and weaknesses. Like, for example, do you need a guy on your staff like KB? Because KB walks in every morning, you're going to get yourself ready to go. All right. I love his energy. His energy is remarkable. And so I just think that, you as a person, you have to get to know people, and they got to get to know you as a person, because not just can this guy get players, or can this guy coach, or, can this guy build relationships, or, can this guy work players out? They need to know you as a person too. Like, does your personality fit that guy, or does your personality actually fit what they need in that job at that point in time? So to me, that's the best advice, is just getting to know people and them getting to know you and who you really are as a person.
I mean, I agree with 100% what Coach is saying, and I might not be the right guy to ask on this deal. I've been, like I said, low mid-major assistant coach for my whole career, basically. So I haven't moved up the ladder too quick, but a couple things that I've just heard from other people and different things that I've jumped on committees and things like that was one of that advice that I'm trying to take to heart is, networking doesn't always mean networking in the gyms and just calling randoms, and just as, networking on your home base is huge too. And again, I don't know your level that well, so I apologize if I'm sounding ignorant here, but, like getting to know your AD, getting to know your administrator, getting to know your compliance office, if you have that, working those things. You never know who they're going to know, or maybe where they're going to leave on to go to the next job. And that's one thing I really try to do here, and every place I've been, is just try to treat people right, because they're going to remember. Not everyone's going to remember what you say or what you did, but they're going to remember how you made them feel. And so when you go in a room, how do you make someone feel? And I think that's really important, just being the same person. But another way I think right there is, change is hard for a lot of people. People aren't really, bet on themselves. The different phrases they use on right there, making moves. I made this move to North Dakota State because I thought it was best move for my career. It was a hard move. My wife was having a great job down there. Our kids were in school. We had a great house. It was a really difficult move to go in, but I thought, that it was going to be the best thing for my career is to make this move. And that's, if you want to get into college coaching, a lot of it's moving. Sometimes it's maybe backwards to go forward if you're going to bet on yourself. And it's a tough deal sometimes. It doesn't always pan out, but I know everyone says it, and I got to believe it too, that I think good things happen to good people. And if you're a good person and you work hard and you show up every day and you make people feel good about themselves, and you're a coach can dependable on you. And I know you're a head coach, and maybe the next step is going to be assistant coach somewhere. One thing that I've always taken with me, and I remember Doc Sadler telling me when I was leaving to go be the director of ops for Barry Henson at Missouri State University, he said, and don't forget, Kyan, in front of your name, it says assistant coach. Your job is to assist that head coach. Your job is to make his life easier. Your job is to help him. And what Coach talked about earlier is like, I've tried to have, I'm not a head coach. I don't have HC in front of me. I hope someday I do. But until then, my job is to help my head coach. My job is to help him find players that he's going to want to coach. There's a lot of guys that I brought to the table. I'm like, in my mind, I'm going, we got to get this dude. It's a no-brainer. But at the same time, he looks and goes, I'm not feeling it. And I don't want to pressure him in. You got to fight certain things. I don't want to get down a rabbit hole too much, but I mean, just building relationships and not being afraid to put yourself out there and maybe making a lateral move. One of the main things I was told to go, the reason why I went to junior college was because that would enable me to meet contacts in the Division I level. If you go to a good junior college, you're going to meet Division I coaches that are going to come through your gym. And my job was to print off the roster, get a business card, and print out the schedule. And they came in, I handed it to them, I shook their hand. You know, whatever you need, coach, I'm here for you. And I met a lot of good people on the way just doing that.
Appreciate it. Thank y'all. I'll ask another one. Okay, go ahead.
Coaches, good evening. This is John Smith here. So when you look at your life journey as players, as coaches, throughout your entire journey, it's a lot of coaches you played for, it's coaches that you learned for. When you look at your composition right now, what attributes have you taken from different coaches in your past that you see coming out of yourself right now, rather that's coaches you played for, or coaches that you worked for? Some things that coming up you didn't like that your coach did, and then you laugh today because you wind up seeing yourself saying or mimicking some of the same things. So just think back over your career, player and as a coach. Within your current composition, do you see some attributes you took from coaches you've been around?
Well, I think first and foremost that obviously times are definitely different. I mean, kids I don't know are quite as tough as they were back in the day. So, you know, I don't know if I'm near as tough a coach as as the guys I played for. You know, I think we all probably take a little bit of everything from each guy that we've ever been around, or each coach that we've ever worked for or played for. You know, I was blessed to have played for some real disciplined guys that really pushed us hard mentally. And I think that's the biggest difference now, is just how far you're willing to push kids mentally. You know, I mean, you know, when I played for Ken DeWeese at McLennan, I mean, you know, I thought he was, you know, I mean, when you're playing, sometimes you think guys are crazy. I mean, I kind of thought he was crazy. And, you know, and then I went to Tarleton, and, you know, I remember after playing at Tarleton and I became a coach, there was a guy that worked for Coach Haskins at UTEP, and then later worked for Coach Henson over at New Mexico State, a guy named Russ Bradford. You guys have probably never heard of him. He recruited Tim Hardaway, Antonio Smith. I mean, he was a big time recruiter back in the day. And I remember him telling me one time when he came, you know, I think one of Coach Reisman's first years at Tarleton, UTEP had a guy named Roy Howard that was ineligible. And back in the day, you could stick a guy at an NAIA and he played 1 year, and then you could take him back to Division I. And so he stuck Roy Howard over at Tarleton, Coach Reisman's first year, and the guy was an All-American, 6'10", stud. But I remember, you know, Russ would come down to Tarleton to watch them practice because, you know, he was making sure he kept that relationship good with Roy. And I remember one time when I became a coach, he told me, man, I've been to Bobby Knight's practices, and this guy's way, way harder than Bobby Knight ever thought about being. And so, you know, I went through that. I mean, I played for that guy. And, you know, so, I mean, you know, I think I look back at those things, and, you know, I was blessed because the things that he taught us as a player, and then as I worked for him and became a coach, I think are the things that I was raised on. And, you know, we always say four things, the four most important things. Number one, God. Number two, your family. Number three, your education. And number four is basketball. And that's exactly what that was when we would go in a home. That was our recruiting spiel. And it still is. When I go in a home, I base our talk off of those four things, because, you know, to me, that's the four bases of what's important. Obviously, basketball being fourth, that could be whatever, you know, whatever your fourth is, right? But those three things can't get out of order. And so I look back at, to answer your question, you know, the things I gathered and the things I got from that as a player and as a coach were important, right? Because, I mean, he obviously was a Christian, and we based our program off of Christianity, even though, you know, he probably used a lot of profane words. The one thing that I always appreciated was he always would say, when someone else would say a cuss word, he would say, nobody in here needs to say a cuss word because I say enough for everybody. And, and I'm also going to go to church on Sunday. So, and then family. We broke our huddle and we still, when I became a head coach, I called him and asked him if I could use it. We break our huddle, team, family, believe. That's our saying here. And, so I think family was extremely important to him. He always had us over to his house to eat. I'll always remember that, And so when I became a head coach, our guys come over during the season. They come over before every home game, the night before. And, they're here all the time. My guys are around my family all the time. This is a family atmosphere. And, and then, just education. Obviously that was the biggest thing that we always talked about was getting a degree. And, and I just think that, we base our program off of those, and I learned those things from him, and that's things that are important, right? That's not defense and, toughness and all those things that I think I got from him as well. But last thing, I'll let KB talk, but I remember my first year as a head coach. There's also things, Coach Smith, as you said, there's things that you say you're not going to take, right? And so I worked for two guys. I worked for Bob Marlin, and I worked for him, and so there were both things that they did that I took, and then there were both things that they did that I'm like, man, I'm not going to do that, right? And I think what they always say is that you fall somewhere in between. But it's funny because like my first year as a head coach, I'm on the sideline one night and something happens and I stomp my foot and I put my hand on my butt, like I guess pulling your pants up or something as you put your foot down. And so when I get home, my wife is like, oh my God. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she goes, you should have seen yourself. She goes, you are just like him. And I'm like, wait a minute. I said I wasn't going to do those things. I said I wasn't going to slam my foot down all the time and grab my butt and yell and scream. And so anyway, to answer your question, I guess I probably am a lot like him.
John, what's up, man? How you doing?
1 hour at a time, man. A day is too fast for me, so I take it an hour at a time, man.
I would just say, from everyone I've worked with, head coaches that have been a part of their staffs, I've taken something from everybody. I don't know if it's necessarily something I never went into it being like I'm not going to do, but I thought Doc Sadler was an unbelievable X's and O's guy on defense. He was a great defensive coach, challenge guys. I thought Jeremy Cox was one of the best coaches I've ever seen. He kept it simple, but he would challenge. He'd get guys to play hard and really push them to find that extra gear. Barry Henson was the best I'd ever been around about running a program besides basketball. Just all the things that go into head coaching that you don't ever think about is, you got to wear a lot of hats as a head coach, and as far as running camps and and boosters and fundraisers and he was unbelievable at it, from taking shirts to every time you go meet somebody, hand them a shirt. It's amazing what a $3 shirt would make someone feel like when you show up and hand them a shirt. And just a little thing like that I picked up from him, like, man, it's awesome. I can tell you that. And Scott Sutton was maybe the best I've been around is in-game adjustments. He was really good. Like we'd sit in the hotel room late at night after a game, and we'd go back and argue what time a certain thing happened. We'd be like, no, coach, that happened with 5 minutes left to go in the second half. And he's like, no, it didn't happen with 13-15 left. And they're like, what are you talking about? No, it didn't. It was definitely after so. And we'd always get the game sheet and he'd be right 99% of the time. He knew exactly. It was uncanny how he could just kind of remember the game. And so, just attention to detail while the game was going on. And the guy I work for now he's really good at, Dave Richmond is really good at being hard on him and loving him at the same time. He's really, really tough on him. He finds his right guys, and from day one, he is in their shit. We had getting praised his whole life in the state of North Dakota. It's very rare we ever have one Division I player, let alone two. We signed two this year. This one kid's been told how good he's been his hope for the last 3 or 4 years that he's going to be the next big thing. And he came to North Dakota State, and from day one, coach has been on his case. And the credit to the kid too is, he's taking the coaching, but coach is also loving on him. He's calm that night. And Coach Hooten, you're right. We're loving on assistant coaches too now. So each guy you've been around is just brings something different. And I believe in the philosophy of, million different ways to skin a cat. You know, guys that are defensive minded, guys that are energy guys, guys that are grinder guys, guys that are all offensive guys, and yet everyone has, not everyone, but there's different success levels for different guys that do it different ways. And so finding your right way, pick and choose, and don't be afraid to don't be stubborn. Don't be stubborn. Don't just lock into one. This is how we do it. This is how we do it. Be available to learn and listen to people too.
You guys definitely made good points because, when you work with different guys, you get different styles. I was under Mike McConaughey for 4 years, and Coach McConaughey is gracious, Christian man, God first, humility. He was like the only Division I head coach in the country who mopped the floor, picked gum up. Then Billy Kennedy was real quiet at A&M. But then all of a sudden, I was calm, a disciple of McConaughey and Billy Kennedy. Then I get the Kyan Brown, Lord bless his soul, and he just put a plug in my back. It was just, if anybody, Lord bless his soul, we just had a memorial for Coach Burmeister the other day, so we finally got closure because we weren't able to have it during COVID. But Coach Burmeister was a lot of fun. So again, you do have to take everything that you learn from different people and adjust to your boss as an assistant. And for head coaches, sometimes you do look back at some of the people that you work for and you adjust. I appreciate both you guys asking that question, and it's good seeing everybody that's on this panel today.
Thanks, man.
Coach Brown, with all that energy, I love it because I'm an energy guy too. When you become a head coach, what kind of style, or do you even know? I'm sure you got an idea, but what kind of style will you play? I'm a pressing guy, and you got to have a lot of energy to trap and compete and do all that 94 feet constantly. With all that energy, are you going to do something similar, or how are you going to funnel your energy to how your playing style?
I think about it all the time, Ryan, and I am a high energy guy, but I'm maybe I'm a simplest, or I don't know how I play it out in my head right there. I'm a big believer that the farther you are away from the basket, the lower your percentages go. And so I don't want to pick you up 94 feet and press you if I don't have to, and let you get layups on the other end. I like, and I've got a lot of different strategies on the defensive side, ways how I want to do it. I do 3 different things. I play man-to-man, playing in the gaps, try to pressure the ball, force baseline a little bit. My second thing would be a zone, just to kind of have teams that prepare for it. I wouldn't play it very much, but just occasionally throw at someone. And the third thing would be scramble package that I kind of got from Omaha and how they play, where I trap all ball screens. It kind of, the second half of our game when we were down 25 at ORU, we did it. And you trap all ball screens, and you double all post touches, and you just rotate on the backside, keep with the principle of no layups, contested jump shots. I think a lot of times you can ask guys and kids, like, you can have all this great plan. You can have a spreadsheet, your defensive philosophies. You can have all these different things. Then all of a sudden you ask your kid team, like, what's our defensive philosophy? And everyone's going to go, I mean, I don't really know what, like, it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of paragraphs and bullet points. Like, if I'm ever head coach, they're going to ask my team what our defensive philosophy is. They're going to say 2 things. They're going to say, we're not going to give up any damn layups, and we're going to make them hit contested jump shots. I mean, we might get beat, but I'm telling you, it's going to be simple. They're going to know what it is. And I got no problem shaking my head and going, you know what? You contested it. He made it. Whatever. We're going to move on to the next one. We might play a 4-on-4 and just face guard a guy if he's a great shooter. On the offensive side of the ball, we're going to have a little bit of transition. We're going to move it around. We're going to get side to side. We're going to hopefully have a big guy that we can throw inside and get a post touch, not just to score. But my big thing is, and I know, I know from example, Coach Hooten's teams, they play their asses off. I mean, they freaking compete. They are tough, and they are tough-minded cats that compete for 40 minutes. And that's how I want you to compete. I want you to buy in. I want you to compete, and I want that energy to be given to a teammate. I'm a big believer in, when you're going through a slump, I don't know how it works. I don't know how the world works. I don't know why this thing happens this way. But the biggest thing I tell guys, like, when you're going through a slump or you're having a rough patch, pick somebody else up. Take it off you. Tell your teammate, great shot. Pick them up. Celebrate their victory. Celebrate with them. And before you know, as you start to celebrate their victories and you'll catch yourself just coming out of it and start making plays happen. And I mean, I'm a barker. I'm gonna yell at you. I'm gonna get on you, but at the same time, I'm gonna love on you. And I mean, I hope my teams one day play as hard as Coach Hooten's teams, because that's really the goal right there.
I appreciate that.
Hey, KB, I just wanted to add before I shut up for the rest of the podcast, I know you juiced up, KB, with the academies getting ready to go on. Everybody been locked up since the pandemic. Live period getting ready to start. The academies in June, shoe circus in July. KB, this your moment. I know you're ready. I know them bags are already packed.
I'm telling you, you know who's ready is my wife. She's ready to get me the hell out of the house. That's what the problem is. She's not used to me being home this much. I'm telling you right now. I've got really comfortable in that third stall garage using that smoker. So no, but I'm pumped, and I appreciate that, John, and I appreciate you saying those kind words, Ryan. And I'm not much of a reader. I'm not going to lie and say here no and quote these books that I read. I have dyslexia and I struggle with it, but I try to read some books. And what I touched on earlier is, I mean, I hope what you see is what you get with me. I hope it's not one of those guys, because we all know those people that, you know, they act real cool to you, and then all of a sudden they treat a waitress or a waiter like shit, and they treat people bad, or they act like they don't know you out in public, or you're talking to them and they're looking over your shoulder looking for John Calipari to walk by so they can run over and shake his hand. And, you know, we've all met. I hope that I'm genuine, and I hope that what you see is what you get.
Coaches, I want to tell you guys, thank you so much. We'll go ahead and let you guys, both of you all, just give closing remarks, if you don't mind. Just leave it about 2 minutes each.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll make it short. I think, you know, first of all, I appreciate you guys having me on and, you know, giving me an opportunity to speak to you. You know, I think that, you know, KB's energy is, you know, he's got tremendous energy. And I think it's great that he was on tonight so that I could be alongside him and see the things that that I like in assistant coaches. You know, I like guys like that have that kind of energy, and he's going to be a really good head coach someday because he's got a plan. And I think that's another good thing for you guys to see from him is, you know, he already could sit there and tell you exactly what he wants to do and how he wants to play, and, you know, what he wants them to be like. And I remember being an assistant and sitting over there, you know, and you're going to sit over there, whoever you're working for, and you're going to disagree with them, you know. And I think professionally, you have to have that relationship with your head coach where that you can say the things that you need to. Nobody's going to want a yes man or a yes woman. Nobody wants, you know, you to sit over there and not say a word and not voice your opinion. I tell my assistants all the time, if you guys don't speak up and you don't talk, there's no way we can get better. I mean, how can we not get better if we don't have more opinions? We've got to have more opinions. Now, that's not to say that I'm always going to, you know, like what you said, or that's not always going to say that I'm going to do what you say, but you got to get to a point as an assistant coach where you feel comfortable and you speak and talk, because that's what we want. There may be some head coaches that don't want that, but those guys aren't successful head coaches. So that's the first thing I'll say. Second thing is, you know, guys, that energy, play back off of that energy is, I think sometimes maybe it's a fight or flight inside of guys, but guys come across sometimes like they're too cool. And that's not what we want to see, or we don't want that. Like, I don't want to see a guy who's, you know, like John said, you know, Coach McConaughey swept the floor and mopped the floor at Northwestern. Well, I mop the floor and sweep the floor if it needs it at Sam Houston. I'll stay after practice and wash clothes. I don't care. I mean, to me, that's the type of person that you got to be as an assistant coach. You know, you got to do whatever it takes. And I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, you know, whatever it takes for that program to be successful, whatever that means, you know. And you know, Coach Price Ryan made a good point, you know, like, you know, taking a step back maybe at times. And, you know, the hardest thing to do is if you've made a bunch of money already and you want to get into the college profession, that's hard to do. And, you know, but if you haven't and you want to get into it, you got to understand, you know, that first job may be just a foot in the door job, and it may be that you're not making a lot of money. But like KB said, you got to bet on yourself. You know, you got to bet on yourself. And, you know, and I think the last thing is just, you know, I still believe, like KB, that being a good person and doing the right things, and in the end, it's going to work out for you. I really believe that. And I do think there's a lot of guys in our profession that don't do the right things all the time. And I think they try to take the shortcut. I think they try to make the fast buck. And, you know, I don't think you need to get caught up in thinking, well, that's how I'm going to get a job. Because that's not the case. I still believe that. You know, I'm a firm believer in faith, and I believe that if you do the right things and you're the right person when it's all said and done, good things are going to happen for you. You're going to get that job that you want. You're going to get that job that you deserve. I appreciate you guys.
Well, just kind of piggyback on Coach, and Coach, thank you for the kind words, and I mean it, man. I mean, watching your teams play, and when we were in the Southland for those 2 years, and there was no tougher team, and guys that more disciplined, and guys that bought in and followed their leader. And I learned a lot just from watching you guys and playing against you guys. And that's not just talk to kiss your ass. That's real talk.
Thank you.
Piggyback on your little thing right there. My dad always told me, who was the best man at my wedding, my mentor. And he said, if someone asks you for your opinion, don't be afraid to give it to them. And he goes, if they get upset, that's on them. You shouldn't be mad when you ask for someone else's opinion. They give it to you. You shouldn't be upset about it. You're the one that asked for it. Take it. Doesn't mean you got to do it, but don't be afraid to throw your opinion out there either. Don't be afraid to throw it out there. If he says no, he's the head coach. You roll with it. I think one thing that's kind of in closing up right now, I think we could all, every program, every level, every kid, and Coach kind of said it was, you know, some kids are just too cool these days. And I don't know if it's these days or any days, or whatever, but then I'm a big believer in, if you guys will believe it, talking. Yeah, I get it. I'm a big believer in talking and communication, and teaching your team to talk, teaching your team to communicate, not text, but talk. So many kids, they get in trouble or some things happen and they don't communicate, and all of a sudden a little anthill becomes a mountain. And if they would have just came to you and talked to you beforehand, you would have been able to help them, and you would have been able to maybe guide them in a different thing, and teach them to communicate on the floor, teach them to talk to each other and teammates, put the cell phone up. You know, and one thing we've instituted here is when we get off the bus to go eat as a family, we believe the cell phone's on the bus. And it's just, that, you know, and they're going to give you static about it, like, really, Coach? Like, really? But now our guys and you hear them start cutting up, and they're laughing, and they're goofing off with each other. And we do that several times, lots of times a year. Put the cell phones up. Don't bring them. They're not welcome. Assistant coaches too, put them up. And just teaching your guys to communicate, because I think I'm a big believer in communicating on the basketball floor. You watch pros play, and you have a pro come back to your gym. I mean, I watched Jared Dudley when he was playing for the Suns at the time. I think he came back to ORU and he took 4 bums. I mean, took 4, a walk-on. His buddy was a regular student at ORU, sucked, 2 managers, and he ran our court for like 8 games against Division I players. And all he did was talk. He just told guys, shoot the shot, slide over here, I got you. Hey, rotate on the backside, let's switch this ball screen. All he did was talk, and I mean, it was amazing. Something that I'll never forget in my entire life, and it's something I'm always going to take with me. So teach your guys and hold them accountable to communicate. And probably the last thing, everyone has their own culture and how they define it. And I just think, in my opinion, it's hopefully it's right, and how I believe it's catchphrase, but it's a culture of we over me. You know, we're in this together. If you can't celebrate your team's successes and your head coach, you got to be happy. You know, you can't be sitting behind your head coach being like, I got to get him out of here. I got to get him. You got to get him to win, man. You got to help him out to win as much as he can, and help your team win. And it's a culture of, it's a we. And I think if I ever got a press conference right there, I think about this all the time, because it was such a catchphrase for the longest time was our culture, our culture, our culture. Well, I know how I'm going to define my culture if I'm a head coach. My culture is going to be about people, and it's going to be in 3 different levels. How we treat people. First level is going to be our staff and our team. They're always going to come first. Our players are always going to come first. I got that from Roy Williams, where our door's open. They need something. Our staff and our team we're going to love each other. We're going to be, hold each other accountable. We're going to be a family. The second level of that is going to be your campus, your administrators, your teachers, your professors. You're going to try to get them excited about your program. You're going to build relationships within that campus, within that community. You're going to go over and see English professors. You're going to see agriculture professors. You're going to talk to your AD. You're going to be nice to people when you go to the academic advisor. We're going to treat people the right way. And then the third thing is going to be the community and all fans that support it. And that is going to be a culture defined about how you treat people, because I think it goes back to how you treat people, how you make them feel. You want people coming out, we're going to go to a game tonight. We're going to go watch Sam Houston tonight, because shit, I don't know anything about basketball, but that Hooten guy, he's a heck of a dude, man. I'm going to go watch that guy right there, And I think you can really drum support, and you can really get people to just kind of come out of the woodwork and start wearing shirts just because you treat them right. and that's going to help ultimately help everyone get better. But hey, stay the course. You know, my cell phone was in the notes. If you need 701-526-8493. If I can ever do anything, shoot me a text. My email's online, but it was really nice. And I appreciate you guys taking time to listen to us tonight. So thank you guys so much. And thank you, Ryan, for having me.
Sorry, I was on mute. I want to just take the time to thank both of you all, Coach Hooten, Coach Brown, both for just coming in and giving us just some pointers and some nuggets on how to be a successful college basketball coach. We got a lot of young coaches on this Zoom, so I think it's very beneficial, the information that you shared this evening. Guys, I just want to let everybody know the regulars that come on. And if anybody that wants to come on, we'll be back again next Tuesday, 7 p.m. We'll have, I'll go ahead and just announce it now. We'll have like a national championship edition of this. We'll have someone on the staff of Baylor on the men's side and someone on the women's staff from Stanford. So looking forward to that next Tuesday. Again, if you have not, leave your contact information in the chat. And again, thank you all so much. Thank you, Coach Hooten. Thank you, Coach Brown. And look forward to seeing you guys here soon on the road.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right.